So.
Sorry.
Wait.
This is not uncomfortable, but it's very weird.
This is the thing?
This is the one.
Absolutely. And now it almost couldn't have happened in a better way.
Where do you want to be?
So it was just like,
Am I funny? Now if I go over here, am I still funny?
Better strategy.
Yeah, way better.
I never thought about that.
Yes, it worked
I
out.
don't see it 5 years from now that you're not my most famous friend.
You really have to commit to something. Good to have something pushing you.
That's cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, it might be cool.
This is On The Cusp.
Hello, I'm Ben Greene, and welcome to the first episode of On The Cusp. Today our guest is Ryan Rosenberg, an amazing improviser on the UCB Herald team Belmonte, a fantastic writer, director, and performer on the sketch team Big Grande, and a guy who's been a really good friend of mine for a long time. This week's episode is sponsored by Thai Pepper at 6219 Franklin Avenue, now offering their dinner special for $7.95. If you're tired of salt, it might be the day for Thai Pepper. So, what is On The Cusp? And why am I making this podcast? Well, for a long time, I've been a huge fan of the podcast WTF with Mark Maron, a show where Mark Maron interviews comedians and musicians, and we get to learn about what their life has been like. This show is sort of an unabashed ripoff of Mark Maron's show, except for that I'm going to be interviewing people that are in my comedy community. People who may not be bonkers famous yet, but who I have a feeling will probably be really big someday. I think this show is going to be fun to listen to now, but it might be a show that's even cooler to listen to 5 years from now when these people are potentially even more successful. The fun thing is that when you listen to a show like WTF, you hear people talking about what it was like when they were stressed out and feeling like things may not happen for them. This show gives us a chance to listen to people who are currently in that stage of their career, constantly worrying that things may never work out. That's the state that I'm in right now. I've seen a little bit of success as an actor, but not a crazy amount. I've seen hardly any success as a writer outside of getting to be on a UCB sketch team. There are days that I think about leaving this career because it seems like being in it might be a bad idea. But I'm also filled with hope and feel like things probably will work out for me in the end, and I have even more confidence for my friends. And so that's what this show is all about. It's talking to those friends and getting to learn more about what their life has been and what their hopes and dreams and fears are. So, without any further ado, here is my first guest, a guy who I really, really like, Ryan Rosenberg.
That I thought were big thoughts got littler as I backed up, and the thoughts that I thought were big thoughts got.
Let's do it.
I like what your... do you want to describe what your apartment looks like right now?
Sure.
I think it's a really cool apartment.
Oh, thanks. I like our apartment. Jake and I have lived here almost 5 years. It'll be like 5 years in August, which is the longest I've lived anywhere outside of like my childhood home.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
It's really weird. And even then, like, I had 2 childhood homes because my parents are divorced. So I would like switch off week on, week off or whatever. So I've never lived anywhere like I've lived here continuously more than any of even my childhood homes. You know what I mean? Like, because I switched around.
It's very much a bachelor pad looking place.
I think so too. Which that's what I don't love about it. I wish I looked a little older by decoration or whatever.
Like when you're married someday, if you're married someday, you probably won't have hamburger paintings and French fry paintings on the walls.
Right. Well, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I have my one room. You know what I mean?
You're ready to put a fight in for that.
My man cave. Ugh. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, my friend painted those. They're really, I like them.
I like them too.
Everyone always says that they make them hungry. They always
I can
come
see
over
that.
and go like, I always want a burger and fries after I leave your house. I'm like, well, maybe that's me rubbing off on you. Maybe it's the paintings. I don't know.
Do you remember the first time we met very well, or not really?
No. I remember like early in our friendship, but I don't know.
You just remember me suddenly being
Oh yeah, I've always
there
known
and
Ben
you
Greene.
been-
Yeah.
since being in LA.
Well, how did we meet?
I feel like I remember our first conversation being in like Birds with Mary Sasson.
That makes sense.
And like kind of figuring out who you were right around then.
Oh, okay.
But like at a time where it was hard to figure out like how long anybody had been here.
And you were out here before Mary, though.
Yeah, I was out as of like September 2009.
Right.
And you were out as of 2008 or when?
Something like that. I took my first UCB class in November 2008. So like just before 2009, obviously. And that was sort of when I lived in Santa Monica for a year. So that's when I started that. And then once I started going through the programs, I moved over here because I was like, well, this is what I'm doing. Like, now this is where I want to live, is like by the theater and by all the people that go to the theater and like get closer to comedy. Like, I feel like if I would have stayed in Santa Monica, I don't have the drive to like make it happen on my own. I had to like jump in, whatever.
I feel like 2008 is a weird year where like some people who are now like who like current people think have been at the theater for absolutely forever.
Right.
At UCBLA.
Yeah.
Like got there in 2008.
Right.
Like I think Ryan Meharry.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
It
We all
was like
started at
right
the same
around that
time.
time. Who was your class? Or your first classes?
Well, I in that first class, that's where I met Jake. That's where I met my roommate.
Cool.
And so like we met in 101 and did 101 through 401 at UCB all together. And then also in that first class, there's a couple other fun people, but nobody that like went to all the shows and stuff. It was mostly Jake and I, and we were like, nobody else is really like doing the thing. They're just going to class and then that's it. Like we want to go see shows. We're taking classes because we like the shows, not the other way around.
Right.
You know? So it was
and
like,
not because
cool.
your agent told you to.
No, I still don't have one of those, so that definitely wasn't the case. But then the thing that really like hooked me in was I took boot camp. I took the first month of boot camp when they started
That
it.
ever happened.
Yeah, because luckily I just met Susie in a practice group. Like it was, do you remember Richie Beenan?
The name's kind of familiar.
He now lives like, I want to say like he moved to Wisconsin or to New York or somewhere east of here, obviously. And I was on a team with him, I think he like dropped into my 201 and then invited me to this random practice group because we had fun in class that day. And Susie was teaching this practice group and it was with nobody I knew. But it was fun. And then she was like, hey, I'm starting this thing. You should really do it. Like, it's for people who are only like 301 and above. So it's like going to be good people and whatever. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And that first boot camp was like me, Aaron Whitehead, Ryan Meharry, Marissa Strickland, Steve Slaga, Eileen Shee, Mono, Sky Soleil, that Richie guy, like all of my friends, Matt Reed, and then the next month,
that's a crazy list of people.
it's crazy. And then the next month they did 2 boot camps, and then like Jacob Womack was in it, Rendell Leatherman, a ton of funny people. James Mastriani I did it with, like so many funny people, and doing it every day for a month was like, oh, we're like in this together now.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was like, oh, cool, I'm doing this, you know.
Did you meet Jim Woods around that time too?
He did. It was him and Susie ran together, so that's
Okay.
where we met. And then me, him, and Meharry like became best friends.
Awesome.
And like hung out every day after boot camp, and like played Catan all the time, and like went to their house and played Murder till like 4 a.m. But like we didn't have jobs really. I worked at a restaurant, so I couldn't do it every night. But like I would just like stay there till 4 a.m., drive back to Santa Monica, and then get to boot camp at noon the next day, and then do it all over again. Like it was the best. It was so fun.
Do you remember who your like comedy the idols were that you had like within the community?
Yeah, Jim Woods. Scott Rogers was like one of my first. I was like a huge fan of Scott Rogers at first.
Wow.
I don't really see him perform as much anymore. But I remember he did this one show where he like broke out into a Kanye West song and like knew every word and like wasn't worried whether or not the audience was with him. He was just doing it for him, and everybody else on Flap Jackson jumped on board. And so it was just like this really cool like, whoa, you can do that? Like you can just do that? That's cool to me. Like I was a big fan of him for a while. But like yeah, the biggest ones were for sure like Susie and Jim. Joe Hartzler was always like the funniest guy in the world to me.
What about Jim?
Funniest person I've ever seen. Without a doubt, the funniest improviser. Like him and Ian Roberts are the two guys who it's like, you can work as hard as you want and do as much improv as you want. You'll never be those guys. Like,
Yeah.
it's what they bring to the table outside of improv that makes them so great. Like, I assume everything that is their whole life that has made them who they are, that like, that's just the perfect thing to bring to improv, you know? But like Jim always had a good idea, always would like support his teammates, but was also just like the best at everything. The best object work, the best like commitment, character commitment stuff, just the funniest ideas, like, and also just like really nice. Like he met in boot camp and sort of like took me under his wing, and it was like, oh well, you're my idol and now we're friends. Great, what a cool thing.
And then he really believed in you. I remember like talking to him at a party and him just saying how funny he thought you were.
Oh yeah.
And
thanks, that's great. I like still want Jim's approval. Like it's like a
from
dad.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, from Amsterdam. He doesn't even live here anymore. Whatever. And I'm still just like, oh, if Jim likes me, like I'm doing something right. You know what I mean? Like he's so funny. And same with Susie. Like Susie, they were sort of like the yin and yang of like that boot camp thing. Like the stuff that Jim taught and the stuff that Susie taught were not necessarily opposite, but they were like complementary. Like Jim is like very logical and like if this then what, and you know, like look at all the possibilities of like this thing based on this logic or whatever. And then Susie was like taught me everything I know about a group game. Like here's how to just have fun and like be free and be yourself and like bring the best you to the scene and all this stuff that is like really invaluable in another in this other way. You know,
and both
like,
so positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved it. They were both like, they never, this sounds like silly, but they like never gave me a note like I couldn't handle. Like, does that make sense? Like they gave me every note that I needed to hear, but like not too much at once. And like, yeah, it was just great.
Yeah, that's the thing that when I was being coached by Susie, I always felt like she had that ability to tailor notes that when you heard them, they were the best notes you'd ever gotten, and they made complete sense. Versus some other coaches where you would get a note and it would just be very confusing, and I would feel like I'd heard things that weren't that. And
right, yeah, it's for me working with them, it was always so cool because it felt like for the first time, because I played sports growing up and mostly basketball and stuff, and it just felt good to like have a coach again, like. And I'd taken some improv and whatever, but a lot of times it feels more like a teacher-student relationship than a coach-player relationship. And I don't really care for that. Like, I don't really care what your book says. I want you to coach me as a person. Like, we're both here. Coach. Don't just sit in the back and read out of a book. Like,
and quote yourself.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, or you're watching, then fix the play. Like, take out the board and, like, design, you know. It's like a very hands-on thing, and I really liked that about them. They were both very, like, much more hands-on than they were, here are the rules, go for it, you know?
And sort of learning it with you.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Helping you learn rather than just, like, do it right, you know? Like, yeah, I really liked it. Who's your favorite, like, coach or whatever that you've had?
I would always say Susie as one of them. I thought Anthony King was great when we had him for...
Me too.
Like that advanced class.
Yeah.
So originally you're from what area? You're from California all your life.
I was born in Long Beach, like 40 minutes south of here. But then I when I was like 5, grew up and moved to Northern California, outside of Sacramento, in like a small white Mormon town. We're not Mormon, but it's not a Mormon town, but it's like one of the biggest concentrations of Mormon outside of Utah. Like, they have like 3 huge Mormon churches in my town, and they all seat like, 8,000 people and have 3 services every Sunday or whatever. So it's like whatever that makes.
Did you ever go to that
30,000
church?
No.
Just with a friend.
Yeah, I just didn't have any reason to. Like, the Mormons in our town were like, it was weird because there was like a whole class of people that were just like, these are the Mormons and they hang out over here or whatever, and they ingratiate themselves with population or whatever. But then in high school, I remember there being like bad Mormons and good Mormons, and the bad Mormons were just like normal kids who like drank soda and like maybe would smoke a cigarette or whatever. Like nobody, like they weren't bad. They were just like not really Mormons, you know. Like didn't
on the scale of Mormonism.
Exactly.
They were doing a horrible job.
Exactly. Yes. But pretty much normal kids or whatever. And then there were the ones that were like very Mormon, and they were sort of more cliquey and were like, we all have these values, so of course we hang out together. Like, it wasn't that they didn't like other people. It was just like they didn't want to sort of get outside that, like, maybe it's bad influences, I don't know, but they were just cliquey. And
do you have more bad Mormon friends than good Mormons?
I guess I didn't really have like a ton of Mormon friends. Like, it was just, it wasn't.
This was the highest population of people in the town, and you tried to stay away from all of them.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it wasn't. They weren't like the most people in the town. It's the most Mormons outside of whatever. So like the whole town wasn't Mormon. It was just like this little blip of like, whoa, a lot of weird Mormons here. Like, not a lot of weird Mormons. A lot of Mormons here for a unknown reason.
Yes.
Is what I mean. But yeah, it was fun. I liked high school. It was a good time.
What area of Northern California is this?
Outside Sacramento. It's called Rockland is where I lived. It's like between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe.
And how did your parents choose that?
Well, my parents were divorced. And
they had already been divorced.
Yeah, they got divorced when I was like 2 or something like that.
Okay, wow.
And then we all lived in Long Beach in a couple different places until I was 5. And then my mom, this was like right around the time of like the early it was like 1990, 89, and in Long Beach there was like race riots and stuff. And like, if you ever saw that movie Freedom Riders with
I know it.
With what's her name? From $1 Million Baby.
Yeah.
She's great. Anyway, so that like takes place in Long Beach, and it's all about like race riots, and it was just like a lot of civil unrest or whatever. And my mom was like, I think like a second grader brought a gun to school that my sister was going to, and she was like, well, we can't be here anymore, like whatever. So my mom wanted to get out, and we moved to Rockland, and there was like nothing there. Like, it was a town of like 6,000 people or something like that, and it was just like track homes and nothingness, and so it seemed like very safe and whatever, you know.
This is perfect.
Yeah, for my mom, like, yeah. And then my dad moved up like within a year after to like, you know, be there for when we grow up and everything. So my whole life they were divorced, but they only lived like a mile away. So it was just like not even which side of town. Like, they both lived on the same side of town, just, you know, a 15-minute walk from each other. So
yeah. Do you feel like you have a different relationship to divorce than like most people you talk to because it didn't happen like while you were all that conscious? Not
really, because I don't know what like the process of divorce is like, because it had already happened since I was only like 2, you know. Like, I don't really remember them together, so it would be weirder for me to like see like my parents. They get along fine now, like now that we're adults and stuff. Like, it's just easier to be friendly or whatever. Everything's, you know, shit still comes up every once in a while, but yeah, I don't really remember like. It definitely, to me, is like, oh, divorce is a viable option because my life has been great. So I don't think you're, like, shortchanging your kids by getting a divorce. I don't think that, like, I think it's the best decision. Like, rather than have a toxic household, split it up and do it for the kids. You know what I mean? Like, get a divorce for your kids. Like, I wouldn't give that as advice, but I think it's, like, if you think you need one, I think people should do that. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that weird. Obviously, everyone's getting them. But yeah, I don't know. I do sometimes wonder that, though. Like, subconsciously, I never was in a household with, like, a working relationship. I wonder if I don't have an example for that or whatever, you know?
And all of your examples are just from media.
Yeah, or, like, friends, or, like, but I don't get to see that intimately, so it's like, who knows, you know? But I don't think that's a thing. I think I'm, like, a smart adult guy who can
I think a lot of people have married parents and don't get to see what a really good relationship looks like at home.
Right. Yeah, I think so too.
What kind of kid would you say you were?
I was like a bad athlete. I really,
but an athlete.
yeah, I like really loved to play sports and everything, and like as a kid, I was really good. I was like one of the best ones on my team, and then
why bad?
And then I like didn't grow for a long time and sort of got chubby. I didn't grow very much from like 6th grade until like my sophomore year of high school. So it was like a weird period when everyone was starting to grow that I was not. So you just lose ground really quick because everybody's bigger, faster, and stronger. And who cares if you can dribble a basketball if everybody can just run past you and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was hard. It was like, oh, the one thing I love is being taken from, essentially. And
Just
like,
by...
yeah, and like there was some weird like stress with that with like my dad because he wanted me to like be good and like see me succeed at the thing I love. So he was like, well, you got to lose weight. You got to get out there and like train and go for runs and whatever. And I was like, yeah, but I didn't do it. I didn't want to do that stuff because I was like,
And also just
that's
be
not the
taller
reason.
at that point?
Yeah, and like it wasn't that I was so short that I couldn't compete.
Yeah,
It was
'cause
that
you're-
I was chubby and
yeah.
like whatever. So
And also
like,
you're tall now.
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm like a tallish guy. I think I grew like this may not be true, but I grew like 6 inches between like the end of my junior year and like first semester of my senior year.
What a cool time to...
Yeah, kind of. It was like I was fat all through high school, and then my senior year I like got tall and like slimmed down a little, and I started going to the gym that year. Got a gym membership and like got not way in shape, but like compared to what I thought my life was going to be forever.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa, cool. So I think I need to do that again. I think I would love to maybe lose some weight now.
And grow
be
another
like,
6
Oh,
inches.
grow another
Be
6 inches. Have like another
tallest
renaissance. yeah. The tallest man in comedy. But I was like I was a happy kid. I was like I played sports and I liked that, and I always had friends, and I was in student government, and like everybody was that does what we do. It's
Do you have
like,
a moment that you remember as like your sport highlight, your like the best?
Yeah. There's definitely some like fun game things that I remember, but I went to a basketball camp when I was in 8th grade, I think. And they do this thing at the end of camp. It's like a week-long spend the night thing, and it's at this place like up in the hills in like Auburn, which is or wherever it is, in the foothills, like on the way to Tahoe. And they have these little cabins, and they run a basketball camp out of it, and it's the Sly Park basketball camp, best camp. If you live near it, you got to go to it. But so at the end on like Sunday when all the parents come to pick everyone up, it's like an all-day sort of display of the kids. So like we have like championship games that we've been working like in the beginning they like assess everybody and make teams, then those teams practice, and then there's like a tournament that goes all week, and then Sunday's like the big day where like the champions get their trophy and blah 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 blah. So it's like a big deal because all the parents are there and everybody at camp, it's like hundreds of kids are like down watching and whatever, and they give away one free camp every year, or the chance to, and you have to shoot a half-court shot, a three-point shot, a free throw, and a layup all in 30 seconds. You have to make them all.
Wow.
And so it goes layup, then whatever, so it gets longer as it goes or whatever. So you have like 30 seconds, and they call one kid up to try for it, and if you make them all, you get to go to camp next year for free. And it's like $600 or something. So it's like huge for a kid with zero money or a job, right?
Yeah.
And so first of all, I was like, for some weird reason, I was like, it's not going to be me. Better not be me. I don't want to do this, whatever. Just like I had a weird feeling, I guess. Then they called me, and it was me out of like a couple hundred kids. And then I did it. I made all the shots and like got a free camp the next year.
That's unbelievable.
And it was all these kids that I had like met through the course of a week, but we've been spending 24 hours a day together because we like sleep in the same bunks and go to breakfast and then go to play basketball all day and then go to lunch and then go play basketball and then go to dinner and then like hang out and campfire at night. So it's like all these best friends all of a sudden who like know what a huge opportunity it is to like be the one person to do this in front of everybody. And they all went bananas. Like when I hit the half-court shot, literally people ran onto the court like it was like the end of the finals or something. It was awesome. And then I didn't go the next
So
year.
cinematic.
Even though I won the free camp, I didn't go the following year because I felt like I was too old. But it was still pretty amazing.
Were you able to redeem it for $600?
Could I just have the cash for making a few basketball shots? I wish. Oh, that would have been the best.
And what kind of comedy did you like around then?
I was like big into character stuff, which I don't really care about now.
Does that mean Mad TV?
Yes, it means Mad TV. It means Nutty Professor. It means Austin Powers. In Living Color was huge. Like Fire Marshal Bill was the funniest thing in the world to me. And I used to like sit around the table at any family gathering and just like do the clumps. Like I would sit down and just like be Eddie Murphy playing all of the clumps, and I knew every word of the scene, and I could just do it. Or I would like be all the characters from Austin Powers when they're sitting around that round table or whatever.
And your family would prompt you to do this?
They loved it. They were
Okay.
obsessed with it. Or that's what they said.
No, I'm sure they were.
But
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah, I was like, because I think, to me, it felt like, oh, this is what I should be doing. But to them, it was like, who is this little 10-year-old? Like, a 10-year-old who's like confidently telling jokes is like weird, I think.
Yes.
You know, like.
And kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's really, even just the gumption of a kid to think I would want to listen is like funny to me. You know? Like, so I guess I think I was probably pretty annoying at times, for sure. Like, the parents all loved it, but my sister wasn't as huge of a fan. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, look at our little guy. And my sister's like, yeah, everyone's looking at him. Like, it's annoying or whatever.
What was she like?
She was an athlete. She was a great athlete. She was like, I looked up to her forever growing up because she was like an all-state basketball player and like went to college to play basketball and this whole thing. And yeah, she was great. She was like a tomboy and beat me up all the time, like toughened me up and whatever. She probably beat me up too much when I was a kid. It was like embarrassing because, oh, I'm getting beat up by my sister, you know. Like,
but you really were.
Yeah, like, and not like punch in the face. Like she wasn't like she wasn't mean, but she could just like manhandle me. Like if she wanted to like hold me down on the ground for 20 minutes, like she just could because I couldn't do anything about it. Like she was tough and not really mean, but you know we both were shitty to each other.
Yeah, that's what an older sibling does.
Yeah, that's how it goes. I think we were pretty normal, and we hated each other for a long time growing up. Or I don't know if she felt the same way, but I was like, oh, living with her is my worst nightmare.
Because of how much you got thrown around?
Yeah, it just felt incessant. Like she had a bunch of friends because she was like the coolest woman at our high school. Like she's 3 years older than me, and so like then I get to our high school and you're like, oh, you're Kate's little brother. You're Kate's little brother. So, like, forever growing up, my older sister was this better, stronger version of me. And, like, I think that's part of why I did comedy. Is like, oh, she can't do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she can go out and, like, score 50 points in a basketball game and, like, get in the paper for it and, like, whatever. But, like, she can't sit around the table and make people laugh. So I was like, cool, this is my, like, I think that was for sure part of it.
That's really cool. And you were... When you were loving comedy, were you also thinking about it as a viable career that you could like really do?
Not really. I just like it was all I did. Like Ace Ventura also was like I was huge. I just would run around and like just basically repeat lines from stuff. Like I wasn't really making up my own comedy. I was never like into theater or whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought that like I really loved funny stuff. You know, like it wasn't necessarily about me creating and performing. It was just like I loved to laugh and like I loved that kind of stuff, which is still kind of the same, I would say.
So when do you think was the first time that you said this is something I might go for real?
College. I was like I didn't know what I wanted to do, but coming out of high school I was like I want to go back to Southern California. I want to go like surf at the beach. Like that's what I thought I wanted my life to be. So I went to Long Beach State.
And be a professional surfer.
Yeah, be a professional surfer. Yeah, this kind of chubby fat guy. I'm losing the weight. Maybe I'm slimming down for the beach. You know, I don't know. So I went to Long Beach State and then was going to like major in business. And just sort of got there and through some happenstances or whatever was just like, I don't want to do this. Like, what am I going to do that for? I took calculus my first semester. But in high school, I didn't take math my senior year because I didn't have to. Like, I think I started math like a year ahead in high school, so I didn't have to take anything my last year. It's like, oh, great, I finished pre-cal. I don't want to do calculus. That's just hard. I don't need it. I can get into school without it. So then I tried to take calculus my first semester after taking a year off of math and just forgetting everything in the world. And I also got this teacher who had hearing aids in both ears, like the big kind that like stick out real big. And he would like, people would ask him questions and try to like, you know, I can't even give you a math reference of what it was about. But, and he would like answer the wrong thing. He would answer what he heard rather than what was asked. And it's like, we were literally, all of us in this class would like look at each other. And like none of us knew each other. It was all of our first semester in college pretty much. But we were all like, he would start writing really fast in chalk and you could barely read it, and talk really fast. And then people would ask a question, he'd answer something that seemed completely different. And he would turn around right on the board and like literally 30 people would all go like, what? Like, what? So I dropped that class immediately.
Yeah.
Which took me down to 11 units. I was no longer a full-time student. And I picked up bowling, which I got a B in. And then was like...
Wait, what would you have had to do to get an extra...
I think it was 8 o'clock in the morning on Fridays. And so I just didn't have great attendance.
Yeah.
I was like sleepy
but
or hungover.
Really good at bowling when you were there.
But good when I was there. Yeah. I really nailed all those quizzes. So then I just sort of was like, well, what am I doing? I'm never going to be able to pass this calculus class. I'm not going to get good at math again. How's that going to happen? I need that for business. It was like a prereq or whatever. What am I doing? What do I want to study?
I love how much you might need that for like a business degree, but not really for business.
Yeah, right.
Probably.
Yeah, not at all. Who's ever doing the quadratic equation for like a real estate deal? Or whatever? It's like, it makes no sense. But I get it. We should learn at college. We shouldn't just skim it. Whatever. But so then I just sort of was like, well, what do I want to do? Like, for the first time in my life, I get to like take classes that I want, like other than home ec and woodshop. You know what I mean? So I was like, well, I really like film. Going back to like always, you know, that's always all I did was watch TV and movies growing up, and so I was like, oh, I'll take film, and then I decided like, oh, I want to write, and then I kind of was like, oh, well, if I want to write comedy, and then I just took a class at UCB, and that's how it all. That was the first time I was like, oh, this is a thing. You know what I mean?
As a college student, you took that class?
No, sorry, that was after college. But
yeah.
I knew that like writing for movies was a thing. Like that was what I thought I would do, is just write movies. And then college ended and blah 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 blah, and it was like, okay, if I'm gonna write movies, I want to write comedies. And then I took a class.
How much faith do you think you had in yourself that like this could really happen? Were you pretty optimistic?
In the beginning, yeah, I think so, because like film school's a weird thing because everybody sucks. Like everybody's bad at it. Like me too. Like I was horrible. Like I've looked at old stuff I've written and it's just like not any good, you know? But if you can be the top 10% of a pile of crap, you feel pretty good about yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you think it's at least you can keep going, and like I just kind of keep realizing that like you kind of get to the top of like your pile of shitty stuff, but then you realize like, oh, now I'm at the bottom of a new pile of shit. And then you have to get better and like rise through that one. You know what I mean? Like nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all just sort of agreeing that's why styles change and tastes change, right? Like we're all just doing what feels right, but there's no right way to do it. So yeah, I still am not positive it's going to work out. I mean, like I'm pretty confident, but who knows?
Do you think of yourself currently as being in the midst of a pile of crap?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Like when it comes to improv, like I for a long time felt like, oh, I'm rising through the ranks, I'm like getting better, and like my shows are getting more consistent, but that was like indie improv, you know, and like at the beginning I was like nervous at mock, right? Like nervous at mock improv. And then by the end of 2 years of doing mock, I was like, oh, I can go out here and say whatever I want. Like, I just feel very confident here. Like, these are all my friends. We all perform together. And I felt like I was like, great, I do well here. And then I got on Herald Night, and now I feel like I'm at the bottom of that. Like, I feel like I thought I knew what doing a Herald was like, and like the pressure of being on a team and whatever. And it's mostly fun. It's not that much pressure, but it's like you're doing a different style of improv. It like takes more work, and it's harder, and it's like there's just more goals to achieve, and like you can't get away with as much stuff, and like you don't get to just say whatever you want. Like it has to all be pointed, focused, purposeful work, you know, and like those are new muscles, and so I'm sort of at the bottom of that skill set, and like I'm working my way up and trying to get better, but like, you know, once I get good on Herald Night, I'm gonna hopefully go to like some weekend team and be like, oh, I'm not doing this kind of work yet. Like, got to get better at this. And, like, I think there's always a new, bigger challenge or whatever.
Are you having as much fun as ever doing Belmonte near Herald's?
Yeah, I really love it. I really love performing on Monday nights. It's, like, such a blast, and the audiences are great, and it's like, very creatively fulfilling. But there are also a lot of challenges that come with, like, being placed on a team versus creating a team, and, like, putting those 8 personalities that generally don't work together already and, like, trying to make that a group is, like, hard and fulfilling because you're making all these new friendships. But it's also, like, it's just challenging your own viewpoint. Like, I've been working with Dan, John, and Drew for so long, and, like, we sort of have our thing. So it's easy for me to play with them because I know what they're doing, like, when they start to do it rather than at the end of the sentence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And same with me. They know, like, what I'm doing instantly. And with this new team, it's like, we're not all worse. We just haven't played together before. So, like, we don't have shorthand. We don't have that, like, we don't hang out 5 days a week like I used to with my sketch group. So it's like, we don't have recurring jokes and types of jokes that we already know we like. And so it's like building a whole sort of, that's the hard part, is like building your comedic lexicon of like what you like to do together, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been tough, but every show is like a new fun thing, and you know, pulling the cover off a new thing we like to do or whatever. So it's cool.
Was Big Grande the first like big time sketch group you did out in LA?
Yeah, I tried to start another one that went horribly.
Well, when was that, and who was that?
That was like, it was sort of born out of boot camp, and me and Ryan Meharry tried to start it, and our idea was sort of that we would be like the head writers of it, and that everyone else would also be in it, which is a bad way to go about it, I think, because, like, I don't know.
To just going, well, we'll be the kings. And
Yeah, it's like, what a presumptuous... I guess, I mean, I get
it
it.
makes sense. When you start something, you get to lead it.
Yeah, it makes sense, but we were just all in a place that we're like, nobody knows enough more than anyone else to do that, sort of, you know? I don't know. It felt weird, but it was fun. It was a lot. It was like me, Meharry, Mastriani, Mono, Carl Stoik. Yeah, there's a couple really fun people in it. It just never materialized. But we had like hundreds of ideas. Hundreds of ideas that were never any good. Yeah, it was fun. But Big Grande is my home.
And then was there like an origin story for Big Grande?
Yeah, Tall Tall Small, which is just John, Drew, and Dan. They like did a few improv shows together. And I think it was like their third improv show. They did the UCB 3-on-3 tournament, and they had a really funny show. They had like 2 really funny shows in this tournament, and some manager approached them and was like, hey, you guys are really funny. I'd love to work with you guys or see what you guys are all about or whatever. This was like, we were very young. We were like, this was like 4 years ago, at least 5 years ago. And they went in and met with this manager, and I was friends with them at the time, but we didn't work together really yet, but we were all good buddies. And they went into this manager, and they were like, yeah, we think you guys are really funny. What do you guys have? And they were like, oh, we just did that improv show. Like, they hadn't been, like, writing together and all that stuff yet. And so the manager was like, we'll put something together so that we can sell. Because, like, we can't just meet these 3 funny guys. We have to sell a thing. So they started trying to come up with, like, writing web series ideas for themselves and, like, all that stuff. And which was, I think Drew was, like, really good. Because he did that with his sister when they moved out here to try to, like, you know, Drew's good at, like, moving and shaking. And
I remember the pilot that him and Caitlin put together.
Yeah, it's great. Or, well, it's not great by now, but it was great then or whatever.
But they really did something.
Yeah, exactly. They accomplished something that was awesome. And, like, I think it did help both of them a little bit. So anyway, Tall Tall Small started writing these things, and then I was hanging out with them but not writing stuff, and they were going to shoot something, and I was like, well, if you guys are going to make something, like, if you guys want me to, like, direct it, since I know your sensibilities better than anyone else because we hang out, I'm not, like, a director, but I'll be on set and, like, keep you guys, like, tell you when to push what, you know, blah, blah, blah. So then they were like, yeah, that'd be great. And then I started going to their meetings, and we started rewriting, and then that thing never ended up getting made, but we became like, oh, shit, the 4 of us want to, like, work together and blah, blah, blah. So I basically just invited myself into Big Grande, and it's been the best thing that I've ever done. And that's how it started, I guess.
Yeah, but really good idea. Invite yourself in.
Yeah, I think that would be my advice. You got to go for what you want, even if it's a weird thing you got to ask for. Like,
and what do you think makes that group work really well? I mean, I've seen. I think both of you've had 2 shows at UCB now, and I feel like the way I describe you guys is just that you have like a better sense of what's fun to an audience than most people.
Oh, thanks.
But what do you think makes the 4 of you work really well together?
I think like, firstly, like we're really good friends and we're very close, and not just close. Not only in a friendship way, but in like a creative way. Like, we're very okay being like, it's just not good enough, or like, I get that. How do we pitch on that idea? Like, we're really good at sort of, or not we're really good at, but something that I think makes us good is that, like, we're not precious about ideas. Like, we just want the best thing to go. And it doesn't matter who wrote it or whatever. Like, none of us have ever really written, like, one of our sketches alone. Like, we've all come in with drafts or whatever, but it's very collaborative. Like, all 4 of us have an equal voice in each thing that we do, except for, like, anything technical. Then John pretty much takes over since he's got all the know-how, and, like, he's so great at that stuff. But, like, yeah, all of our sketches are all 4 of us trying to do the funniest thing at all times, and, like, were you saying, like, fun is definitely an important thing for us. Like, we don't really care about being clever. Yeah. None of us really like clever. We care about, like, funny. So, like, usually we won't start writing a sketch until we have an area that we, like, think is really funny, and then are like, okay, how do we best communicate that idea? So it's like, what idea makes us laugh? Okay, how do we clearly present that to the audience? So it's, rather than, like, coming up with a premise, which I think is, like, less interesting to me. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just that's not how we generally work. We usually come up with, like, a bit or, like, a game or, like, a what's funny about that? Like, it's usually just us joking around and, like, falling into something and then being like, oh, that's so funny. What is that? Like, what is that sketch? How do you make that a thing? And then that's usually where it stems from, is, like, you know, conveying that idea of, yeah, like that Honest Girlfriends one was just, like, us sitting around talking about, like, the difference between what people know about us and who we really are, and, like, that difference is so funny and everyone in the world has it and it's so relatable, and, like, yeah, no one ever talks about that stuff because it's socially sort of unacceptable, or, like, if everybody knows all your secrets, then, you know, you don't get to choose how they perceive you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but I only sort of tell everyone the stuff I want them to know about me, right? So that sketch was like, what if we didn't do that? Like, but we can't just sit around. What if we played, like, because it basically all started about, like, embarrassing stuff with women or whatever, like, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, oh, what if we were our girlfriends saying embarrassing things about us? Like, because those are the things maybe you tell, like, a significant other, but you would tell no one else. I don't know. But it was just like, yeah, let's capture that fun and whatever. So they're just like,
and then that maybe guys. Your girlfriends would go out and violate you by telling them.
Yeah. We all date monsters, and they, you know, just tell all of our deepest, darkest secrets. Yeah. That was the weirdest sketch too, because we weren't sure that it was gonna work. Like, it kills every time because it does have that, like, honesty or whatever, and it sort of breaks that fourth wall. But we were unsure if it was just gonna be like, people gonna like us just sitting around and talking. There's no real, like, game or repetitive whatever. But yeah, it's fun. It's so much fun.
And you're watching something real when you're watching it.
Yeah. I think that's part of it.
I feel like a lot in, like, Hamilton 100 meetings, I'll say, like, can we do something like that?
Yeah.
That's part of what I like about we do a sketch where, like, me and Robert are, like, Robert's a German hiding me as a Jew in his sketch. Closet, and, like, I have to like, and we go into the closet when a Nazi comes, and I get on his shoulders and we go under a blanket, and, like, or, like, he goes on my shoulders.
It's one of my favorite sketches in the world.
And it's fun because there's something there's a real struggle going on stage.
Absolutely.
Not just us making up that, like, we're afraid of something, but I really have Robert on my shoulders, and there's a real danger.
Exactly.
I like that so much better.
Right.
And I don't...
Right. And also, I think the thing that's that's really funny is like that part definitely that like I know you're struggling underneath and I can't see you but I can tell whatever. That reality of being in that room is so funny, but I also think that sketch is so much funnier because it plays on a real funny idea. Like, as much as I am laughing at that thing, I'm also laughing at like, oh man, we've seen kid on top of kid's shoulders in a trench coat so many times. The best way to do that is put it in Nazi Germany. Like, that's a silly, stupid game. Mm-hmm. What if we added these stakes to, like, what if that happened once? You know what I mean? Like, in Nazi Germany, like, oh, we got nothing to do. Get on my shoulders and put a blanket on. Like, yeah, I never want to think about Nazi Germany in a good way or whatever. Like, I don't approve of that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's a really funny idea. Like, let's see that thing play out. It's so much funnier than, like, just a sketch written about, like, trickily hiding from Nazis.
Right.
No, let's, like, do the funny physical thing. I love that. It's so cool. It's really great.
What do you think is everybody in Big Grande's biggest strength individually?
I don't know. That's really hard. I think that, like, Drew...
This is, like, I feel like before some improv shows, like,
right.
You sometimes get the prompt of, like, everybody, like, say what your favorite thing about the other person.
Yeah. It's hard because, like, I like those exercises.
I'm always stumped by that.
I love those exercises because it's great to feel positive.
You might just like those guys too much and think too much of them to, like...
Yeah, no, it's hard because, like, I don't want to cry. Like, like, those guys are, like, everything. Like, Drew is the most... He can turn anything into something great. Like, as far as a performer, he's the funniest person I know that will just, like... Oh, he's just so fun to watch. I'll watch him do anything. And so I always feel good if he's, like, the lead character of a sketch because, like, he's going to work it out. Like, if the script is weak, he'll fix it in performance. Or if the script is weak, like, we'll work on it really hard. And having him there, like, performing it as we're writing, like, we'll change it to that. Because he's the best, not what's on the page. You know what I mean? So, like, he's really good at being sort of our litmus test for what's funny. Because, like, if the idea is any good, he can sell it. Yeah. And be like, oh, there's something there. And if he can't do it, then we move on. You know what I mean? Like, totally. But there are ideas that I'll try to pitch really hard, and it's just, like, not quite hitting, and then Drew will do something, and it'll be like, okay, it's worth working on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so he's really great at that. Dan is, like, he's so smart. Like, Dan is, like, the comedic mind of 2014. Like, I think Dan is just, like, the funniest, smartest.
This is his year.
Yeah, man, it's been his year forever. Like, I think he should be, whatever. I just think Dan is so smart and so good and, like, always can find the best version of everything. And he's really good at being, like, he's the one who the most, and I like, learn a lot from him in this way of being, like, okay, so what's funny about this idea? Not what's the game. Because we can write a game easy. A game is not hard to come up with and complete. But just because we figured out the game in a clever way doesn't mean it's funny. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we've got the math right, but there's nothing to stand on. Like, he's really good at being like, if we're stumped, okay, what's funny about this? We're not following the right thing, blah, 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 blah. Kind of in that, like, Besser way where it's like, he's very different from Besser, but, like, having that, like, if we're not starting in a good place, why keep going? You know what I mean? And I think he's sort of our, like, anchor in that department of, like, make sure we're always following the right thing, you know? And he's just, like, yeah, so smart at that. John just knows how to do everything. Like, he's a jack of all trades. He can shoot, direct, like, edit, write, act. Like, he's not, like, the best at every single one.
Yeah.
But he's really good at all of them. You know what I mean? Like,
what's the word? Impresario?
Yeah, he's like a jack of all trades. Yeah. I don't know. Like, whatever it is, like, we've done so many things that have only been possible because John, like, fills in the cracks of all the other stuff we can't do. You know what I mean? Like, and it's that's helped. Like, all of our coolest stuff is only possible because John is, like, our production coordinator, Photoshop, everything cool, like, has lights and, like, he has got a really good visual mind and, like, it's awesome. Like, he really, like, brings our stuff to life, I feel like, you know? And then I don't know about me. I don't really... You'd have to ask them about that, but...
yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think, like, the thing that makes us good is just having like a high standard of quality. Like we've shot a bunch of videos that we're not going to put out just because like, oh, we did it wrong. That's not what we, and it's like a bummer that we're not going to show some stuff or whatever, but it's just like, well, it's fine. What is showing it going to like help or whatever, it's like, cool, we learned a lot and we'll do it different next time or whatever. And like, yeah, we don't really do sketches, or we try not to do sketches that we don't believe in or whatever. And like,
yeah, well, that's a lot of integrity for a group to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, but we also are stupid and we have a stupid sense of humor that we really love. So like, we put out a lot of silly stuff too. But I think like that's my favorite thing about our group is like, I never feel like I'm doing someone else's bad sketch, which is a great place to be because it gives us all a lot more confidence in our shows, I think,
So how surprising was it to have like Drew, like what was the first sign that like his life was about to change in a weird way?
I think when he booked that movie, that like prank movie, it was like, oh shit, Drew.
Did that feel like a bigger thing than anybody else had gotten ever, or?
Yeah, it also felt like a bigger thing than it was, I think. It was a weird thing because it was the guy who like did Peep Show, that British show, which
I love
like,
Peep
we
Show
all really
so
love and everything, and we're like, whoa, you get to work with him, like, and he likes you, what a great thing, like, and he was in that movie with Whit, and Whitmer's really funny, and it just felt like, oh man, you got cast in a real movie that's not for kids. Like, UCB still kind of feels like the clubhouse, like, not the improv clubhouse, but like a clubhouse where all the kids hang out who are like waiting to get, it feels like college, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that felt like,
Our
oh
college.
man, you graduated to working for money.
Yeah.
In whatever. And it also was sort of the start of like, he's had this manager forever who's been very helpful and whatever, but it was a lot of just like pitching him, and now it was like, oh, I have you this audition now. And it's like Drew was starting to like actually work on stuff. And
Yeah.
Like, he's been working his ass off just like auditioning and getting ready, and he's like goes to the gym now, and he's like put on a bunch of muscle, and he's like really working hard at like being a whatever, and he's like also on Big Grande, and he's got Medium Friends, and he's got his mod team nephew and a million improv teams in Winslow, and he's just like so funny, and he's been working so hard, and it just kind of became clear like, oh, Drew's going to be like really very successful in the next few years.
Yes. I feel like, so I think the interesting thing about it is I have a very clear memory of like sitting in like Betsy and Mono and Mary's apartment, and like you and Drew and a bunch of other guys, and maybe Steve and a bunch of other guys like sitting around and going like talking about Herald teams and basically saying like, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's just never gonna happen. We're not gonna get it this year, and then we're not gonna get it any year.
Right. I remember that too.
Which is funny from the standpoint of, like it happened for every single person who was in that room.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that kind of that feels like a microcosm to me of like what life is now a little bit, because Drew is one of like the first proofs of concept of like, you might have a hunch of like, I feel like in quiet moments, like our friends might say to each other like, I think like a lot of these people are going to do really well.
Yeah. Right.
But like none of us have yet, so it's really just a stupid hunch, and we're probably idiots.
Yeah.
But like Drew's one of the first to like, he's with the How I Met Your Dad thing, like that's like a different level of cool thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's now auditioning for like movies with Robert De Niro in them, and like Nancy Myers, who is like, he jumped like 10 stories. Like Nancy Myers is like for old people,
right?
Like you've had to have been in multiple movies, but now Drew met her, and like she insulted him sort of, and whatever. She didn't insult him. She was just like, well, it's a big screen. You don't have to be so big. And, like she thought he was used to TV, and he's like, I've never even worked in TV. Like, I shot a pilot, but like I've never been on TV. Like I don't have bad habits. Anyway.
So how much do you day to day feel like it's just a matter of time before that happens for you? and Dan and John?
Right. Definitely not very much. Like, I'm not worried about my career. I just, like, am a little impatient because I'm poor and it's hard to be poor. But that's really the only thing that, like, bothers me. Like, I'm pretty creatively satisfied and, like, would love to be doing things on a bigger scale, but I like the things I'm doing. They're just not being seen by as many people and I'm not getting paid for them. So it's like, I don't feel like I need to, you know, like, I always want to get funnier and get better and learn more about writing. And right now I'm trying to work on learning more about story, because, like, I've been doing sketch for so long, which is the opposite of story. It's like, don't follow the plot, don't have a plot. And now it's like, well, I need to do something over 30 minutes, you know,
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm trying to work on longer form stuff, but I don't feel the same way because I'm not going to make it the way Drew is.
Yeah.
And, like...
Well, I think you're going to have your different thing, but that's going to be, like, really big for you.
I hope so. And so I'm trying to work on writing because I think, like, that's my way in. And I would love to be in my own stuff later, but, like, we get what Drew has and we get what I have, and they're different. And, like, his skills jump off the page because they're personal, but my skills are more about, like, the content that is created. You know? So it's... they're just different, and I don't mean to take that away from him. He's also creating amazing stuff.
Well, you're just a
whatever.
unique person. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people where, like, you're their favorite improviser.
That's very nice. Yeah, that's
and
nice.
because you bring something else to the table.
Yeah.
That they've maybe never seen before, like a totally unique personality.
Yeah, Drew just has that, like, very shiny skill set.
Yes.
I don't know that one is better or whatever, but apples and oranges, and, like, apples look better, or whatever that is. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to be like, oh, I can take Drew, put him in this thing, and my thing is better. It's harder to see me as that because it's like, unless you've read a bunch of stuff I've written, you don't know that, like, that would make a thing better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not as public of skills that I have, maybe.
Yeah, sometimes it's harder to...
Like, look at, like, Joe Saunders, like, one of the smartest guys in the world. Like, comedically, his mind is a steel trap, whatever, like, can make anything funny on the page, but just, like, is a quieter guy and whatever, and I don't think that people know how funny he is, you know? Like, he just now got a writing job that he should have gotten 5 years ago. Like,
What was that?
I think he just started writing on some new show. I don't remember.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't...
great. It's great. I haven't even talked to him about it. Just, you know, word goes around. But he's, like, so
I'm
funny.
hearing about it now.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
What do you feel like are your general anxieties, like, day to day, or, like, what anxieties do you, like, struggle with the most right now?
Will I ever finish anything?
Uh-huh.
Is, like, really hard for me. I don't work well alone because I don't have the... It's not self-confidence, but, like, when I'm bouncing stuff off of someone, or, like, even just talking out loud or whatever and hearing it rather than just thinking it, I just have more confidence. But, like, writing alone is hard for me. I'll finish a page and I'll be like, is this good? Is this how I want to write this scene? Is this whatever? So I have a hard time finishing stuff alone sometimes. But I'm getting better at it, and I'm working harder on it. And that's what I'm trying to work.
That's really cool.
So that's my anxiety. Is like, you know, if I don't ever do it on my own, it's never going to happen. You know, I'm the only one. I'm in control of this thing. Nobody's going to come and be like, will you please write a thing for me? I've never read anything of yours. So I need to at least give someone something to read of mine before they can want me, right?
Yeah.
So that's the anxiety I have, is like, I got to make some really good stuff, and that's, you know, every artist, I think, worries about, is my stuff any good? So there's some of that, and then just, like, day-to-day problems of living in an expensive city with no money. Like, that's the other one.
Have you been working recently as, like, a writer's PA kind of thing?
I did for a little while, and, like, that show Rectify for a few weeks, but that was the last sort of gig I had, and then...
And Save Me.
And Save Me I worked on for 6 months, and then Smallville I worked on, so, like, those are the jobs I get occasionally where I'll have to work for a year or whatever, but I'm trying to, like, take time to write my own stuff, because every time I get one of those 60-hour-a-week jobs, it's money, and it's great, and whatever, but if it's 8 to 8, that means, like, when I'm done at work at 8, I don't want to go do an improv show. I don't want to whatever.
Yeah.
I want to go home and fall asleep on the couch. Like, and I'm not as productive in those times because, you know, you're doing a lot. But.
And you just had a cool thing on Playing House, right?
Yeah.
Like you were a stripper on that show?
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm a stripper. No, it's tomorrow night, actually. It airs tomorrow night. And I got lucky. Like, they are UCB people, you know, and they're really awesome about trying to get other UCB people in their show. And I started just as a background actor. Like, they were like, yeah, we just need some people, so get some UCB folks. So they had a bunch of regular background actors like SAG, whatever. And then they had me, Mary Sasson, and this other girl, Juanita, do it. And it was really fun and great. And we made a little bit of money and we like sort of got on TV or whatever. And we did it twice. Because they were like, oh, bring them back for this other scene. We've like established them as like people that live in the neighborhood. So like bring them in to be extras in this other episode. So that was like, oh wow, what a nice, thoughtful, like that is all coming from Lennon and Jess. Like,
really cool.
It's not their producers because they don't care. Like it's UCB people looking out for UCB people. Like all the actors that are in it, like Bobby Moynihan and Neil Casey was in that episode, and like everybody's all.
Bobby Moynihan was like a stripper with you. Like,
yeah.
It's like you, Bobby Moynihan, Ian Roberts, and is there a fourth guy?
Paul Welsh and Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah, that's such a cool.
Yeah, it was literally five. It was all UCB people that played these like meatball stripper cops. Yeah, it's great. So that airs tomorrow, which will be fun. It's the only thing my family can talk about. Like, just to prep you guys, I don't have a lot of lines, and I have big boobs, and I take my shirt off.
Yeah, but don't you think that being in that kind of thing is the kind of thing that, like, if you heard that was going to happen 5 years ago, would have been the most exciting thing in the world? Yeah,
absolutely. It's the coolest thing that's ever. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened in my career. It's the most money I've made for something like creative. Like, I weirdly got paid as like a SAG dancer. Because they had to have me all week because we had to like have rehearsals and practice and whatever. So I got paid for like a week of being like a SAG dancer, like made a few grand or whatever, that I wouldn't have made otherwise. I would have just been like an extra or not worked at all, you know. Yeah, it was the coolest. I never thought. And I'm like going onto the studio a lot and like all that stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm here for the reason I want to be, you know. It's really cool. It's really fun.
And what is like next for Big Grande? How many more dates do you have for your show at UCB?
Our current sketch show, I think, is done. Mike said he might use it to like fill in if someone drops out or whatever, which would be fun. I think we'd like.
Because how many times did you get to do it?
I think we did it 4 times or 5 times,
which is really
good. Or maybe like 3 plus the spank or something. Yeah. So like 4 total. I don't know.
If you were in New York, it would have happened many more times.
Yeah, right. Isn't that crazy? New York runs shows for like a year.
Yeah,
like.
It's much different.
Like 8 whatever. I don't know how that
works.
More than 8. Yeah, really? That's crazy.
I just know that, like, I don't know, my friend Josh Sharp's, like, show, Maneater, I think had, like, 20 shows.
Right,
or something like that.
It's like a Broadway run.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
It's like a,
That's crazy. And were people coming to all of them?
Mm-hmm. It was, like, sold out every time.
Because here, I don't think that happens. I feel like people lose interest after about 3 or 4. Right? Like... unless you're someone real...
Yeah, I think
unless
so.
Unless you're a celebrity, people don't really
Maybe there's
coming.
More endless people.
I think so. I think there's a...
And maybe here, there's like 200 people who are interested.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's definitely a difference there. I don't know what it is. So we're trying to like pitch a new... We have some other things going. We like created this like... YouTube wormhole show. Did we tell you about that one?
Yeah, I love that.
And we're in the process of like trying to make that a real thing. And
so the YouTube wormhole show is like every sketch is like the next YouTube video of somebody who's like going down, who's like watching video to video.
Yes, pretty much. I don't want to say too much about it. No,
okay.
I don't care.
You should.
I think, but yeah, it's basically like a weird sketch show where like. Instead of, you know, how like Kroll Show or Chappelle Show did a lot of like TV parodies, even if it wasn't parodies of shows, it was like that's sort of the world they live in. Ours is the internet. So like where they make fun of any reality show, any VH1 thing, any whatever, anything that can make its way onto YouTube is sort of our playground. So it's like having fun with, which is cool because all of that stuff does make it to YouTube, so we can also do that stuff. But there's also this like specific niche of the internet of like straight to camera, like monologue videos and
Yeah.
Denny's fights and,
There's so much
whatever.
to work with.
Yeah, it's limitless. So it's been a really fun thing to work on. And then we're trying to do like a new more regular live show that's like maybe a sketch show, maybe a variety show, maybe
But a thing you would host at a
mix.
theater, that would be awesome.
Just to sort of be like our thing that we like, our monthly or bi-monthly show that we could sort of have as a like, I think the idea that thank you, excuse me. Excuse me. Like Hubel and Shear's Crash Test, where it's very free form is really attractive, but also we are a sketch group, so doing more sketches, and we don't just want to host a show because we want to create material for it and like material that we can maybe use elsewhere. So we want to do something that we like and get to include other people in and make it like a really fun night, like you were saying earlier, like not just put on like a sterile comedy show, but like a fun variety type thing with like audience participation, and I don't know. So
That sounds so cool.
Yeah,
what a
we're
cool
working on
thing
trying
to
to do
like
that.
have access to be able to maybe make that happen.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope we're gonna be able to go see Mike soon, and hopefully he'll like it. And I don't know, we'll see. But it also means a lot of work. It means we got to start meeting more regularly, and whatever.
How tired do you get?
I get
of,
real
like,
tired.
doing all
I get real tired, especially at night, like before bed. I get so tired. No, I never get tired of doing Big Grande stuff because it's always it's the thing I'm always most proud of.
Yeah.
But it is hard. Just like the more everybody gets, the harder it is to do group stuff. Because like now
Yeah.
Drew is like, his schedule is. He's flexible because he doesn't have like a day job or whatever per se, but he's always auditioning. He's got again all those other groups he's got. It's just like. And he can't really shift stuff around getting like professional auditions or whatever. So like we all have like coachings and like a video we're shooting with Will Reese that'll be great.
Yeah.
But we can like fudge what time we get there or something. You know what I mean? Like not show up late, but like, oh, can I do afternoon instead of morning or whatever?
Yes.
And like he doesn't really have that flexibility, and like John's getting more paid editing work, so he's doing that, and like, Dan and I have nothing and we'll never be anybody, but like we play into it too. So that's been like sort of the hard thing, is just like we can't be as much of a group as we would like to be anymore in terms of like amount of time spent. Like we used to meet like 3 times a week and work on stuff, and it's because we needed more time to find good ideas, I think, too.
Yeah. But there's an ebb and flow of all this stuff.
For sure.
And I feel like, yeah.
I feel like earlier you were asking about like anxieties, and I don't know that it's an anxiety, but that's one of the biggest frustrations of like this sort of lifestyle, is like being pulled in so many different directions is like hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's hard, and also for me, I'm not really great at like just like getting back to my own work right away. Like I have that sort of whatever. So it's a lot of like limbo time of like, are we meeting today? Because I got to keep this thing open. Oh, we can't meet anymore. Well, now I have this open time.
Yeah.
I should fill it with something productive. I should go to the gym. I should do something. And it's like, yeah, I don't have like a daily schedule, which is hard, Like I'd like to have that.
Yeah. But you're
I'd like
doing,
a job.
you're doing.
I would like a job. Anybody who's giving out jobs, like jobs that pay money, I would love the one. Yeah. So that's like the hard part, is like the logistical side of doing comedy is a nightmare.
It's very hard.
It's a nightmare. Even you've ever been on like an improv practice group? Those email chains are like 300 emails to meet one Thursday. You know what I mean? Like,
and that could become just exhausting by itself.
yeah, it's work. It's like every time I do a practice group that takes 2 hours, it really costs me like 6 hours of my life.
Yeah.
Because of all the emailing and driving there.
6
and hanging out.
hours.
You know what I mean? Like it's the time that's actually spent for those 2 hours is like closer to 6, because it's like, yes, I can do that time. Okay, no, we can't do that time. Fill out the doodle. Go do the doodle. Whatever. It's just like nobody's getting paid to do anything, so nobody can commit to anything, and it's really hard to like move forward with that.
Yeah.
But
I just think though that your general approach to things out here has been so good.
Oh.
And right.
Yeah.
And I feel like the whole point of this podcast to me is that I can't. I'm doing this interview under the like. Just with my full belief that I don't see a 5 years from now that you're not like my most famous friend.
Oh,
or
you're the best. Thank you.
Yeah,
very
I just
much.
think that's so true. I feel like you couldn't be doing things better.
Oh, Ben,
So
I feel
it's-
the same. I love all your writing ideas. I
it's-
just want to see one of them on the screen soon.
Well, I'm very sick.
Oh, no.
No,
Are you going away?
Yeah, I'm very sick.
Ben,
And
that
I'm
would break
going
my heart
away.
if you died of, whatever.
Starvation.
Yeah, especially if starvation. Like, I have so much...
I'm dying of the diet that Madeline has put me on.
The forced diet from you. Oh, that's the funniest thing in the world. Someone putting someone else on a diet is like, oh, you can't do that. What a scary thing.
Yeah, but in her defense, she just loves thin guys.
Yeah, sure. I get it. And, you got to fit her ideal of beauty. I totally get it.
My dream weight for myself is 150 pounds, and her dream weight for me is 120 pounds.
That's like the perfect amount. Like, you didn't overshoot it. Like, if it would have been like 98 pounds, it would have been like, haha, funny. But I could believe that. 120, it's like, she just wants you to be rail thin, but like fit, but like thin. Oh, God, what a nightmare that would be. What a nightmare, trying to get thin.
Is there a thing about yourself right now that you hope really doesn't change?
Doesn't change?
Yeah.
I don't know, like what? My hair? I love my hair. I love my haircut right now. No, I don't. I need to get a haircut. I don't know. My childlike spirit, Ben. That's what it would be. I don't know.
I wish you had said that.
I do hope that. I do hope that, like, when I'm an old guy, I still act silly. You know what I mean? I don't want to, like, die before I'm dead. Like, I want to have fun until I go. That's cool.
Yeah,
Was that cool? Was that maybe cool?
That was really cool.
Yeah, it might have been cool, right?
All right. Well, thanks for talking to me.
Oh, Ben, thanks for having me. This is so great. I can't wait to hear the other ones.
I can't wait. I obviously love you, man.
I love you too, dude. We're both truly on the cusp. Beanie, 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 da-doom, doom, da-doom. That's your outro music.
I'm going to use that for everyone.
Okay, great. I hope so.
That I thought were big thoughts got
So that was Ryan Rosenberg. If you want to see Ryan perform live, you can catch him almost every Monday with his Herald team, Belmonte at the UCB Theater. His team, Big Grande, has shows all the time, so just check the UCB calendar for that, or do a Google search for them. Special thanks to my producer, Cece Pierce, to Casey Triola for the music in this episode, and to our sound editor, Joe Burge. Thanks for listening to On The Cusp.